Welcome to the Spirit Soul Series podcast, and today we have again another episode with Supriya Chechi, and we're going to start the ninth chapter of the Gita. You can take it away, Supriya Chechi. Go ahead.
Okay, right. Yeah. Thank you, Kanan. Happy to be back. Yeah, this is the ninth
Okay.
chapter we are starting today. And now we are kind of really getting into the heart of the Gita. Uh, we started getting into the heart of the Gita when we did chapter 7. And then it gets a little more real in chapter 8. And now this is the real stuff in the ninth chapter. Because you can see from the title, it's called the most confidential knowledge, meaning that once you get this knowledge and imbibe it, it puts an end to your misery. It enlightens you to such an extent that it can put an end to your misery. That's why it's the most confidential, the most valuable, the most precious kind of knowledge that's being given here. And in chapter 7 itself, if you remember, we were given, uh, we were enlightened uh, by verses like the two verses that taught us how four categories of people do surrender, or do inquire into spiritual life, or do turn and look for a higher meaning in life. And there are four categories that don't. And some description. And then we were told in that same chapter 7 that the three modes are so tough to overcome because they constantly bind us hand and foot by various combinations and permutations, meaning mixtures of Rajo and Tamo and Rajo and even Sattva Gun and so on. The only way to do it is by surrendering unto him. Then you can cross it like you cross that bridge, or like a boat that crosses a moat. So we were given that kind of information in chapter 7, and we begin to get enlightened by such verses. In chapter 8, it straightaway plunged us into the other end of the whole spectrum, that what happens when we die, and why it's so important to be in proper consciousness when we die. Where do we go after we die? And therefore, we have to start now practicing that consciousness, or just nourishing ourselves and enlightening ourselves. It's a very good thing that this chapter 8, though it's only in the middle of the Bhagavad Gita, is like I said, it's plunging us straight into the dark waters of this mystery of what happens to us after we die. Because a lot of people start thinking beyond their mainstream life and aspirations and goals when this suddenly hits them. Someone close to them dies in a tragedy. Somebody young is lost to them, or someone who is old and elderly is suffering and is heading for sure death. So then they start beginning to think about this question: what happens? Where do we go? Where can we go? Is it in our power to control where we go, and so on? So chapter 8 that we've just completed is very nicely placed somewhere in the center of the Gita. He's not waiting, Lord Krishna is not waiting till the end of this discourse to give information about this. And therefore the chapter was called Attaining the Supreme. And we heard of different destinations and different methods to get to a higher destination and a better destination, or to even go back to Krishna, which was one was of course Dhyana Yoga, the other is Bhakti Yoga. And the fundamental principle being that whatever you think of at the time of your departure, that's the situation you enter. Why? If someone were to just corner us and ask, but why? Body is over, you are over, where is the question? It's because when the soul travels forward on its journey, the mind and the intelligence also go with it. And since the mind is where all our memories and our hopes and aspirations and frustrations and disappointments are all stored there in subtle form, like we say a file, and then we put it on a pen drive and take it with us. So that's why, because the mind travels with us, it determines, and then Krishna of course determines and sanctions what kind of body, what kind of family we get born into, which species we get born into, and what type of real life that we chalk out for ourselves in the next lifetime. So that was chapter 8. Now in chapter 9, the very first verse, it actually has a very meaningful word in it. We'll read the shloka first, the verse first. Meaningful word because it resonates. It's something that we are guilty of, or we can catch ourselves doing it all the time. So here, the word here, envious and asuya. And because Krishna, Arjuna is not envious of Krishna, he is anasuya. without envy or enviousness. That's the word given here. And here the discussion is about Arjuna not being envious of the Supreme Lord. But we are going to look at, even if it's too tough for us to understand, how do we end up being envious of God? We may not believe in God, that's different. But how can we be envious of God? All we need to do as a first step in that direction to understand this is to see how easily envy creeps into our talk when we are narrating something about somebody else or some event, and we'll get into it after reading the verse itself. So would you like to read the translation?
Yeah, so it's the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, My dear Arjuna, because you are never envious of me, I shall impart to you this most confidential knowledge and realization, knowing which you shall be relieved of the miseries of material existence.
Okay, so here there are, in the actual Sanskrit, there are three crucial words here. Idante guhya tamam. So guhya, I think you've heard in Hindi and in Malayalam the word guha or gufa means cave. So you have the Vashisht Guha or Vashisht Gufa somewhere in Rishikesh, because that was a cave inside which sage Vashisht sat. And even otherwise you hear about the snake inside a big cave, it's always Guha or Gufa. So Guhya basically means something that's hidden deep inside a cave. It's a big secret, it's confidential. Then there is Guhya Tara, that means it's even more secretive or even more confidential. It's precious, its value increases, so it has to be hidden more carefully. Guhya Tamam means the most confidential and one that needs to be hidden really deep somewhere. Now we are yet to determine or yet to discuss what it is that is so confidential. But meanwhile, Arjuna is being told by Krishna that he has the right qualification to be let into this big secret. Like when we share a secret, we first make sure that that person has a lot of restraint and can be trusted and will understand why we don't want the word to spread about whatever we are sharing. That's the qualification we look for in a friend. Whereas on the contrary, if you are foolish, and usually they say you tell a woman and then the woman will tell 10 other people. So it's, you have to look for that qualification with whom that secret can be trusted. Now in this context with Arjuna and Krishna, it is the lack of envy in Arjuna that Krishna sees as the main qualification for him to Arjuna to be given access to this confidential knowledge. So this envy, and then in the purport that follows, this envy, and the word is asuya, as we know, even in Malayalam and maybe even in Hindi. Jalan, I think in Hindi, jealousy.
Jealous.
Anasuya means without envy. So what is the big deal? Why is envy such a big issue? And we're told in just one striking sentence that comes somewhere, maybe it comes only, okay, it comes only later down the purport. So before we come to it, let's just see the first paragraph in the purport that is telling us why this is so valuable, this knowledge. And like I said, Guhya Tamam is one particular striking word in the shloka. Then there is Anasuyava, you can see in the Sanskrit. Then there are some others which I think we won't go into now because it will delay the actual discussion. So purport, just start reading the purport, please, Kanan.
Yeah, so purport is, as a devotee hears more and more about the Supreme Lord, he becomes enlightened. This hearing process is recommended in the Srimad Bhagavatam. The message of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are full of potencies, and these potencies can be realized if topics regarding the Supreme Godhead are discussed amongst devotees. This cannot be achieved by the association of mental speculators or academic scholars, for it is realized knowledge.
So here you have another word. This realized knowledge is very different from just knowledge. So knowledge is usually referred to as gyan, and realized knowledge is vigyan. And you have in the second sentence of the first verse in this chapter, you have this term gyanam, vigyana sahitam. Knowledge, sure, but vigyan means realized. So to realize something, the Lord also has to sanction it, and we have to do something to clean our heart to be able to receive that particular kind of understanding and for it to appear in the heart. So there is Gyan and there is Vigyan. And here it is Jnana Vijnana Sahitam. So we are told very plainly in this first paragraph of the purport that it just doesn't do to discuss these topics with academic scholars or mental speculators because they are not devotees, and by virtue of their whole orientation and their academic dry inclination and their speculation, doubting even the existence of the Lord or the greatness of the Lord or the compassion of the Lord, they disqualify themselves. Therefore, they don't really get it. They don't have access to Vigyan or realized knowledge. So if we discuss these topics, so we hear from such people, we also run the risk of not getting Vigyan or realized knowledge of this Jnana Vijnana Sahitam. But if we are to discuss it in the company of devotees, where these verses and this knowledge starts opening up and allowing us entry, then all our miseries of material existence come to an end. That's what is so great about this confidential knowledge. And here, by this confidential knowledge, what is really being meant is this process of bhakti for Krishna. The whole process is so extraordinary, and we are going to hear more and more about it. And towards the end of this chapter, we are told that famous api chesa dvarachara. Even if a person starts this process and then does something horrible and abominable, he's still not lost, because the Lord really remembers that, he got started, he turned to the Lord, he put his faith, and then maybe the material energy caught him and dragged him away, and he's still not lost, all is not lost, and he will quickly be reinstated. So plus so many other verses of how this highest knowledge is the worst type of sinner can also across the nescience, the ocean of nescience, by just climbing into this boat. This we were told even in earlier chapters, but that theme is going to intensify now. So what's meant by the most confident knowledge is this devotional service itself, the process by which we come to learn and love Krishna and how he reciprocates. So you just read the first chapter, para.
Para,
The
para.
para. Okay, now the second para, the devotees are here. Again, there's like a crucial sentence here on how the Lord reciprocates. The devotees are constantly engaged in the Supreme Lord service. Fine. The Lord understands the mentality and sincerity of a particular living entity who is engaged in Krishna consciousness, and gives him the intelligence to understand the science of Krishna in the association of devotees. Discussion of Krishna is very potent. And here it might mean also, even if we can't discuss, we hear classes, we ask questions, things register, and then we follow it up and learn more and more about him, or appreciate, and our faith increases. And if a fortunate person has such association and tries to assimilate the knowledge, that is to imbibe it, he will definitely make advancement towards spiritual realization. Lord Krishna, in order to encourage Arjuna to higher elevation in his potent service, therefore describes in this 9th chapter things that are more confidential than anything he's basically done before. So what is this that is being going to be described here? It is the glories of devotional service, or Kevala Bhakti, only Bhakti. Bhakti not tainted by Jnana or Karma or Dhyana Yoga or anything. Kevala Bhakti, pure Bhakti, simple straightforward Bhakti. That the glories of that are going to be explained in this 9th chapter, because it's just such a powerful force that it can overturn the most hopeless of situations. And though we are not yet on that verse in the end of the chapter, just to give you like a preview of how powerful this process is, I was listening to an interview, one of these Namras podcasts, with a boy who was born and brought up in Mayapur, Bengali, Manipuri mother. His father, like many poorer Bengalis do from Mayapur, they try and get a paid job as a pujari or a cook in one of the ISKCON temples in the West. This is their ticket to the West. Once they get there, they stick to the service, do additional jobs, make money, save money, they think they're going to give their children a better chance in life, and then they come back with enough money to build a house in Mayapur or wherever, whichever part of Bengal. So this family went like that. I don't know which years they went, but I think the boy would have been about 9 or 10. Unfortunately, they went to one of the worst cities in America called Chicago, Chicago, where apparently the crime rate is very high, and street gangs and internecine gang warfare. That is all the daily culture of the place. This boy started going to some affordable school and was straight away teased and teased because he used to wear this chandan mark on his forehead as a devotee child. He was 8 or 9 or 10 or something. And he used to wear neck beads, and he used to say hello and Hare Krishna and all. Teased and teased. And also because he's Manipuri, he was asked if he's Chinese, if he's Latino, if he's Mexican. And in the struggle for survival, this young fellow got dragged into one of the proper gangs. And he stayed in a gang estranged from his family and his parents for 8 long years. And those gangs did everything, horrible stuff. He has seen people die, he has shot, he's seen a bullet come at him, he's been chased by the police, he's been in jail. 8 long years went like that. Because he says at one stage when he saw the struggle for survival was so tough, his father, who took a house small, must be one room or something, as close to the Chicago temple as possible, within the budget, affordable by that salary, he even so, and even if his family, wife, 2 daughters, son, before this fellow got estranged, and then there was a brother also, even if they were just going to walk up to the temple, it's a very short distance, the father would insist that he would walk with them because one never knew what would happen in that short span of time. That was how terrible Chicago was. So when he got brutally beaten up or abused or something by this gang, he just lost all faith in Krishna. And he kind of told himself that this Krishna consciousness is too soft. It's not enough for the material world. One has to learn to protect and beat up and protect oneself. And I'm going to take to this. This is the only way to survive. Now, once he got into this gang, it's a longish interview. His name is Govinda Janmashtami. This fellow, this boy born to and the father kept working as a pujari. The mother was helping. They were distraught. But once they heard he'd gone into a gang, and he says sometimes somewhere in Chicago he would see his parents, and he would quickly run away from there, because even if his gang came to know what his mother looked like, what his sister looked like, within some problem within the gang, they would probably take it out on the parents. Shoot the rape the sister, shoot the father, mother, whoever. Once he was in, he was properly stuck. There was no way out. He became a tattoo artist because in within this gang, because apparently as you cover rungs or levels, you get certain marks put on you so that other gangs recognize your level, what you're capable of, and don't mess with you. So it went on like this. There came a day when life was hell, but within that, it's a very honest interview, and it is shocking. I've never seen any case like this. That it's like a lost case, and then he comes back, because it comes back to the right track and comes back to his faith for Krishna and so on, and to his parents when his father dies. Now, once this much has been, he's gone so far. He says that he kind of kept telling himself, this is the only way. Where is Krishna? If Krishna was there, he wouldn't have put me in this situation. After all, I was born on Mayapur Dham, and after all, my father is a pujari for years and leading a decent life and so on. Some situation came where he says that in the other gangs, there and in all the gangs, children join when they're 8, 9, 10. One thing happened, he saw left and right his friends in other gangs just die because they are shot, they're caught in some gang warfare. So this really scared him, because he knew it can be his turn anytime. The other thing is, he found himself in a back alley or in a situation being attacked by 2 boys who he had known as young fellows back in that school, whichever school he went to. And they came at him with having guns in their hand. And this fellow says he had nothing, he was most unprepared for this attack. So all he had was a butcher's knife, and he went for them with that butcher's knife. Somehow the police, I think, whistled, or they came in, and the gang, this broke up. But that day he went back and said enough is enough, and he started this long, because he said had he really used that butcher's knife, he would have killed 2 young fellows who he had known as little guys, little fellows, when he was a little older in that school he went to for some time. And he said he could have never have forgiven himself. It's different to shoot and kill and be part of people who are old enough and presumably to know what they are doing, and because they are attacking you. These two fellows obviously had fallen into the same kind of net. So then started the long procedure of trying to get himself out of the gang. It's not easy. They will put you through a lot of tests, a lot of harsh tests and cruelty to see if you are loyal, and you're going to give it in writing, and literally that you will never sneak on the gang if the police catch you and use you as a source of information, or if, say, the parents put pressure on him. Anyway, there was a long procedure, and the 1.5 years passed, and he got out. And I think one of the conditions was that he should not stay in America. So somehow, but then his father had also made money. Father had passed away. He's now back in Mayapur. His name is Govinda Janmashtami. He has his own Instagram page. I looked it up, after hearing these stories. Very much a tattoo artist. He's married now with some woman who knows this the best. But it's just, so what he's saying is that the power of this process brought him back. It's really like a graphic example of this apichetasa duracharo. Even if someone who has taken to this process, the process is so glorious and so dear to Krishna, even something terrible happens and he goes and does abominable, horrible acts, he's lost only for a certain period, and then he will quickly come back on track.
I I think
Yeah.
I take it as actually like I take it mostly like this has happened to me also a couple of times. So
Uh-huh.
when this happens, I kind of think like, okay, like if you do something bad, like you know that you're on this path, but then you do something bad, or you
Yeah.
do something that's like that's slightly in the mode of ignorance or whatever and all that,
Okay. Okay.
and then when you do that, you think like for a minute you'll think, that it's this whole thing is getting in the way or whatever, and then suddenly you realize just after a few minutes you realize, oh, but like it's what gives me the strength also at the same time,
Yeah.
it's almost like the minute you like just think that you can go on with life without it, you immediately get to know how you start feeling this sense of like, oh, loneliness, like, like, no, I
Ah.
don't think it's like very difficult to get. It's like once you're in it, it's very difficult, like it's like it's almost like a gang. I don't want to like I don't want to like equate the same, but
Actually,
it's
this
almost
boy uses this parallels, that when he
okay.
came back to the ISKCON family, he
Yeah.
uses the same parallel you're using,
Okay.
like a gang to support you. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's I mean it's kind of like that, you kind of feel like, okay, you're because in this case at least there's no guns, there's no nothing wrong,
Right.
nothing
Right.
happening, nothing bad. So you know that nobody's asking you to do anything or anything like that, no. So there's like this thing of, okay, I can, I can, I can be safe, or I can do what I want to, like there's no problems and all. So I think that is that's very attractive for people. Like, I think that's what brings them back, because you can feel like, okay, I don't think this is like helping me or whatever. But then just when you think like that,
Hmm.
immediately you start thinking, oh, but what else is there? Like, what else is there to like, what else can substitute this? Like, it's almost impossible. Like, I don't. Once you're in it, then it's very difficult to get out of that. It's
Hmm.
like.
And it is exactly what you said. What else is there and what better is there was told to me when I was having the same kind of doubts, like you're saying, 20 years ago, when I had joined, and something was coming in the way, exactly as you put it, and it was difficult. So whoever was guiding me at that time wrote and said, there is nothing better available in the 14 planetary systems. You can go up and down and you can become so qualified, you're like a transcendental spaceman. There's nothing better available in the 14 planetary systems. So, and the greatness of this process, or bhakti yoga or devotional service, or like kevala bhakti, pure bhakti, not tainted by karma and gyan, the greatness, you won't find that kind of protection and potency on the path of dhyana, ashtanga yoga. You won't find it in karma yoga. You won't find it in gyan yoga at all. This potency, because Krishna is very much a participant and a partner in the whole business. Each time we have these doubts and we want to move away, and some change of heart comes, Krishna is kind of reclaiming us. In the case of this boy, this Govinda Janmashtami fellow, this Manipuri mother and Bengali, now he must be touching 40, I think, mid 30s, touching 40. he himself, I think Namaras asks him, so why do you think that Krishna just let you be in the gang? And he says, well, he knew, Krishna in my heart knew that I really wanted to enjoy separate from him. I wanted to know power. I wanted to know people in my clutches, or people who were scared of me and that I didn't have. I felt it was really liberating to be. So he said, okay, then go and have it. And he says there were many situations where easily he should have been dead. And he asked himself, why did he not die? So he says, so obviously there is some purpose, some Krishna had some specific plan for him. Otherwise, like, none of the others were Hare Krishnas. And mostly he didn't dare tell anyone about his religion, because again he said, not so much out of that they will just offend, or they will spit at it, or they will make fun or anything, that they may, if they fall out with him, they may just go straight into the temple center and do something there. We just don't know what they're capable of. Do something to his family. So even if he saw sometimes his family within the city of Chicago in a mall or coming out, the mother was working for some nutrition center or something, and the mother herself, yes, that's one of the things that basically made him turn to the gang. She says in the early years, he saw that there were occasions when the mother just routinely going for her paid salary job in a nutrition board or something, she had some education. While she's trying to unlock her car, she would have a gun stuck on her forehead. And until she parted with whatever cash was there, she wouldn't be allowed to enter the car. So these are the things that really got him. That where is Krishna if he is harassing us? My father is a pujari in the, what is it, Radha Kishora Kishori temple in Chicago. We came, left the dham and came here. Where is Krishna if he's allowing such things? Why do you have to live in so much terror? So he had his kind of real strong reasons for going in this wrong direction. Now, as to what is going to happen to him for the crimes he's committed, I really don't know. That question doesn't come up in the podcast. Is Krishna just going to wipe his slate clean? Will these reactions, catch up with him later? Will Krishna forgive him totally and just claim him out of his causeless mercy? That really remains to be seen. So there's nothing better in the 14 planetary systems. And here, this what is being given as the most confidential knowledge is the potency of bhakti. Why is it really considered so potent? Because Krishna, who is supreme, if we take to Kevala Bhakti and show him that quality of pure bhakti, he gets conquered by his devotee. This is why, I mean, he can turn the whole situation upside down. Otherwise, he's the most powerful, he's the absolute, the supreme lord and the absolute, and not a grass moves without, unless he wills it, and he can finish off demons, and he can sit far away and control, and he can do everything.
So the
But
only the only thing that nothing can subdue Krishna, but the only thing that can subdue him is like the devotee's love
yeah,
for him.
so
That's
isn't that extraordinary? He gets conquered, and he takes a very submissive and a kind of power position if he sees so much love from the devotee. He is willing to be ordered around by the devotee. This is rare, very rare. So therefore, that is why it is something so glorious, because if it has the capacity to, what can you call it, to overturn, to upset that the position of the basic supreme, this is really something quite extraordinary and fantastic. uh, Now then, why, okay, so that much we've understood why it's considered the most confidential, and this whole chapter is going to go on, and therefore it's considered like easily one of the best chapters in the Bhagavad Gita, the most beautiful chapters. And then we just heard why it is, yeah, confidential. That's right, put it up. So why this harping on one must not be envious? Anasuya way. Arjuna is not envious, therefore he gets to hear from Krishna about this. The reason is, the clue is given actually here in the very last paragraph in this purport. Just go down to the very last.
yeah, right. Okay. So the Sanskrit word anasyuve in this verse is also very significant. Generally, the commentators, even if they are highly scholarly, are all envious of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even the most erudite scholars write on the Bhagavad Gita very inaccurately because they are envious of Krishna. Their commentaries are useless. The commentaries given by the devotees of the Lord are bona fide. No one can explain Bhagavad Gita or give perfect knowledge of Krishna if he is envious. One who criticizes the character of Krishna without knowing him is a fool. So such commentaries should be very carefully avoided. For one who understands that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, the pure and and transcendental personality, these chapters will be very beneficial.
Okay, so this Anasuya, the key word here is inaccurately they represent things, and the root cause of all misinterpretation is supposed to be Asuya or envy. And even if we can't immediately accept or figure out why should we be envious of the Supreme Lord, like you say, we may not accept he exists, we may be atheists, we may doubt, but why envy of the Supreme Lord? Apparently, and we are told all our problems start because of we are stuck here in this material world because of our envy of the Supreme Lord and how much he can enjoy, and how, like this gangster boy Govinda Janmashtami, that he just wanted to taste freedom and power separate from Krishna. And so it was envy that took him away. Now, as far as we are concerned, if we don't get it as to why we should be considered envious of the Lord or of God, we just need to think how sometimes when we report incidents that have happened, or we are passing on information about someone else, something nice has happened to someone, and when envy creeps in, we invariably make something inaccurate and misinterpret and tone down something that's actually very wonderful, and say and just dampen the whole mood and say, oh, that's not anything really very great, because this is the envy. We can catch ourselves all the time doing it. At least I can see it coming up in conversations. Maybe just it's just because envy is a root cause of misinterpretation and of inaccuracy. Therefore, one has to be careful. Prabhupada is saying to not read commentaries that are written by however great erudite scholars, and they may have great standing in society, because if they are not devotees and they are not willing to accept Krishna or enter into a loving relationship with him, then there is every chance that they are going to be inaccurate in how they portray or how they translate. So here, this the danger here, and many well-known commentators. I think one of them was Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan. In fact, my first exposure to the Bhagavad Gita was from him, was his edition, and I very joyfully and happily read the first chapter and the second chapter, and then I didn't get further than that till I came to ISKCON. So maybe in one sense I was protected. But we hear all the time that with the problem with that academic kind of approach is that when Krishna is saying surrender unto me, the translation that Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan ji, high statesman as he was, gives is, it is not to Krishna that you have to surrender, but to the unborn within Krishna. Now, what is a lay reader? I never got to that translation because, as I said, I never got beyond the second chapter. So, if someone reads that, what are we supposed to? Krishna is telling us in plain English or plain Sanskrit, Mamekam Sharanam Vraja, just surrender unto me. And the translator is telling us it's not actually there that you have to surrender, but there is something that is yet to appear unborn within Krishna. So this is how inaccuracy and misinterpretation and confusion, the seeds are sown. All right, and therefore we are warned not to hear or not to read such commentaries, because it can contaminate our own the bhakti seed that is beginning to grow within our hearts. So, shall we now move on to the next verse, the second verse?
Yeah.
Okay, just though we don't usually read the Sanskrit, I'll just read it out here because this is just such a famous verse. Raja Vidya Raja Guhyam Pavitram Idam Uttamam. Fair enough. Raja Vidya, the king of all knowledge. Raja Guhyam, the king of all confidential matters. Pavitram, very pure. Idam Uttamam, highest. Pratyakshaavagamam dharmyam susukam kartum avyayam. Okay, pratyaksha, meaning by actual experience. You experience the wonder of how it works on you. So you come to know it. It's not just that you stuff your head with the shlokas and with notes and knowledge. Pratyakshaavagamam dharmyam. This is a type of dharma that basically you start to experience when you practice it. Susukam kartum avyayam. It's joyfully performed. It is not um, hard and austere and dry, maybe like Ashtanga yoga. It's not like Jnana yoga, where the more you pursue it, the more lonely you become, because it doesn't involve the association of devotees, doesn't involve anything joyful like going to a temple, eating some prasad, seeing the decorations, hearing some lectures, and then some discussion. Nothing like that. Therefore, this is far superior because it is Rajavidya Rajaguhyam Pavitram Idam Uttamam Pratyakshaavagamam. Pratyaksha, you experience it. Susukam Kartum Avyayam, that it's joyfully performed and you feel sheer joy when you do it. So therefore, please read the translation to this
Yeah.
verse.
This knowledge is the king of education, the most secret of all secrets. It is the purest knowledge, and because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting and it is joyfully performed.
Okay, oh yes, everlasting. Sorry, I didn't mention that. Avyayam. That is to say, in the other parts, like the Ashtanga Yogi, once he gets what he wants and perfects then he aims for liberation, perfects the process. The Jnana Yogi, his aim basically is to go and merge with the Brahmajyoti where there is no more suffering, no more identity, no more individuality, and he thinks that's how he has dealt with the problems of the world. So his practice ends there. Karma Yoga, people do it and then aim for a higher position, say in Swargaloka. And once they get there, they forget about the process. They've lost all interest in the process and they start enjoying the Somaras, if it is the moon planet, and long, long years amongst the demigods and so on. But that's not the case. That's something again very extraordinary about devotional service or the bhakti path, that even if, presuming that if in some lifetime one does get to either the Vaikuntha planets or the spiritual world, that is Goloka or wherever, by then the taste for devotional service and the pleasure and the sweetness and the joy so much that one continues to serve even there. There is no question of basically completely merging and bringing all activity to a halt. So it's everlasting. That's what is meant by it's everlasting. It doesn't end. Unlike in the other paths where the process ends once the goal is achieved. Okay, so this is the king of education. The most secret of all secrets is the purest. King of education, there's some discussion here. It's not just that it is the highest knowledge available even amongst Vedic philosophies and a whole lot of the six main schools of philosophy and their leaders, they're mentioned here in this purport. You will see Gautama, Kanada, Kapila, Yajnavalkya, Shandilya, and Vaishvanara. Okay, forget them for now. Why is it considered the king of education? Obviously, because it brings the ultimate kind of the benefit and the sweetest kind of results. It's often also called, it is not just the king of knowledge, it's also the knowledge of the kings. And there, the reason that's given is this knowledge, what's given here, it doesn't tell us to withdraw, retreat from the world and go and hide somewhere and practice it. It tells us how to position ourselves in this real world, which is a miserable place and full of impermanence and constant changes and challenges. It tells us how to position ourselves here and to act. So usually that acting is done by the Kshatriyas, and it is the Kshatriyas who become the kings of different kingdoms. So therefore it is often called knowledge of the kings, knowledge that belongs to the kings. They are supposed to implement it. That's why Arjuna is getting this huge long discourse. He is supposed to act as a Kshatriya king of Pandava and go and fight. So it is both Rajavidya can mean both that it is a king of all knowledge. It can also mean that it's the knowledge of the kings. Because the kingly race are the people who have to actually implement this knowledge. The Brahmanas may transmit and give an advice. That's the role of the Brahmin. But the Brahmin normally just sticks to his little zone and leads a more low profile life, just advising in the background. But it's the king who has to implement it. And therefore, and it goes on to say, generally people are not educated in this confidential knowledge. They're educated in external knowledge. And then the next that it goes on to say, if you want to read, this is a long purport, but if you just read this following para, generally people are not educated in this confidential knowledge. Here, the second para.
So generally people are not educated in this confidential knowledge, they are educated in external knowledge. As far as ordinary education is concerned, people are involved with so many departments: politics, sociology, physics, chemistry, mathematics, astronomy, engineering, etc. There are so many departments of knowledge all over the world and many huge universities. But there is unfortunately no university or educational institution where the science of the spirit soul is instructed. Yet the soul is the most important part of the body. Without the presence of the soul, the body has no value. Still, people are placing great stress on the bodily necessities of life, not caring for the vital soul.
Okay, thank you. And of course, now the situation is changing a little in the sense, I know in the IITs, they're introducing papers on the spiritual knowledge because so many brilliant IIT alumni guys are now leading speakers and leading devotees in, especially in North India. So they are going back to their alma mater, or as it's called, and influencing the curriculum makers to introduce courses. So I know that in IITs this option is there now, and I am not sure about other universities, but it won't be long, I think, before, because again in Bombay, some of these top devotees who are most active, Gauranga Das and who else, Gauranga Darshan, they are working closely trying to find out how these subjects can be made a part of mainstream education, mainstream other subjects, adult education. So, as Prabhupada is saying here, that there is no institution where the science of the spirit soul is instructed. To a large extent, that is right. He is correct even now, but that situation is changing, as I said. Then there is an ISKCON program called BASE, and they have like little cells or groups starting in any college that allows it. I think it's called the Bhakti Vedanta Academy for Spiritual Education, BASE, or Academy for Spiritual Culture or something. Anyway, now we can jump this whole section, this whole big paragraph, because all it's telling us, this next paragraph, the Bhagavad Gita, the one that starts, we can just skip it, we can jump over it, because all it's telling us is how in the early part of the Bhagavad Gita, in the second chapter, we are told there is a soul. Now, for those of us who didn't know that, that itself is like great enlightenment. It certainly was for me when I came across that section when I first read the Bhagavad Gita. And it occurred to me that, you know, we've been through such top universities and so many departments. I studied sociology, I studied fine arts, I studied history of art, and so on. But no department ever told us about this. But then the next para is going to, the next para, this knowledge, it's going to lead us to a crucial verse from the Padma Puran. And the analogy is about seeds and planting a seed, and how a little creeper comes out and then it becomes almost like a small tree, and then the flowers come, even if it doesn't become a tree, and then the flower produces a fruit, and the fruit has more seeds, and so on. So the whole analogy or the simile or metaphor that's being used is about sinful activity, and how our karma catches up with us. It's fascinating how it works. Therefore, this knowledge, if you want to read, is the,
Yeah.
yeah,
Where is it?
this the para that is
Okay, okay.
this knowledge. Yeah.
This knowledge is the purest form of all activities, as explained in the Vedic literature. In the Padma Puran, man's sinful activities have been analyzed and are shown to be the results of sin after sin. Those who are engaged in fruitive activities are entangled in different stages and forms of sinful reactions. For instance, when the seed of a particular tree is sown, the tree does not appear immediately to grow. It takes some time. It is first a small sprouting plant, then it assumes the form of a tree. Then it flowers and bears fruit, and when it is complete, the flowers and fruits are enjoyed by the persons who have sown the seed of the tree. Similarly, a man performs a sinful act, and like a seed, it takes time to fructify. There are different stages. The sinful action may have already stopped within the individual, but the results of the fruit of that sinful action are still to be enjoyed. There are sins which are still in the form of a seed, and there are others which are already fructified and are giving us fruit, which we are enjoying as distress and pain.
Okay. And then just jump to this. You see a shloka inserted. Yeah, that's right. This one. I'm sure at least some of the words will be familiar, even if it's tough to read the Sanskrit. Aprarabdha phalam papam, putam bijam phalonmukam, krameneva praliyate Vishnu bhakti ratatmanam. So aprarabdha karma phalam papam. That is the karma or the fruits we get for our sinful activities. There is prarabdha karma and aprarabdha. Prarabdha is something that is already a damn nuisance to us. It's already there in fruit form because of the wrong things we did. Someone already has sinus. I have skin trouble. Or I already have, I went and met with an accident and I have this problematic knee ever since. So that is that is prarabdha karma. It's already become in Malayalam and in Sanskrit, the word prarabdha means it's a damn headache. Valya prarabdhamai, it is a damn nuisance. So that is something that is our own sinful reaction and sinful karma is already born fruit. That is prarabdha karma. What about that whole bag of aprarabdha that is yet to bear fruit? What happens to it? We may have stopped being sinful, but what are we going to do? Because that is going to still keep coming. The aprarabdha, as and when. Now, if you look at an astrological chart, a good astrologer might be able to tell you, okay, 3 years from now, you're likely to have surgery for this problem in this part of your body. Be careful, 10 years from now, you will lose all your money. Where is it coming from? That is, you're right now doing not anything deceitful or sinful, but it's coming as it is just getting ripe to bear the fruit. So how to destroy all of this? Again, this particular process, Kevala Bhakti Yoga, devotional service, destroys even that which is yet to come. How does it destroy it? It's really like it takes a seed and you take the seed and roast it in a pan. Once a seed is roasted, it can't fructify, it can't germinate. It's still there as a seed form, but it's lost the capacity to bear fruit. So that's what it does. The power of this bhakti. We can never continue to live in a material world and be free of all misery, because that's not real. This material world is going to produce misery. But in terms of this hardcore stock of sinful reaction that is yet to appear, God knows from which lifetime, or something that we did, offenses, hurt we did, acted in anger, acted rashly, didn't show value for what we had, threw away money, foolishly just bought something and just threw the whole thing out. I've done this, I know, very rashly. When something doesn't suit me, I've done this so often with cheese because I have a great taste for cheese. Buy it. Sometimes a block can cost 200, and then after I buy it, I see this is going to increase my acidity. It doesn't work for me, and I don't even have the patience to basically wait and give it to someone else who may eat it. Take it and throw it out, and maybe the birds eat it. So the karma for all this is going to come, just not showing any value for money and throwing it out. So therefore, whereas once you take to this path, it's like it roasts and dry fries the seeds of the sinful reactions that are yet to bear fruit in each one of us. So that's another reason why it's considered such a fantastic path and process, so potent, because its potency can actually save us like that. For those who are engaged in the devotional service of Godhead, all sinful reactions, whether they are fructified in the stalk or in the form of a seed, gradually vanish. Therefore, the purifying potency of devotional service is very strong, and it is called Pavitram Uttamam, purest. Uttamam means highest. Tamas means the material world of darkness, and Uttama means something that goes beyond the darkness, that shows some light, makes some sense of things. Devotional activities are never to be considered material, although sometimes it appears that devotees are engaged just like ordinary people. One who can see and is familiar with devotional service will know that they are not material activities. Now, this brings us to the example of Peter Burwash. I think we've discussed him in an earlier class. He died earlier this month, but he was a famous tennis star. If you check it up, Peter Burwsh. He was a famous tennis star from Canada. And at some high point in his career, he came in contact with the founder of ISKCON, Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada never asked him to leave his tennis playing or to become a monk in the temple or anything. He just told him to carry on what he was doing and to keep chanting and keep enlightening himself. So some very dramatic situation occurred where he could not play. He lost a crucial tournament because he had by then become vegetarian. He had learnt about the value of each life and so on. And he was hosting cook shows, episodes on vegetarian cooking with somebody called Nancy Rasoli or someone, right? So Peter Burwash then had a high point in his career where he just lost a crucial tournament. As I said, he was playing singles because he couldn't bring himself to step on some living creature. He got distracted. That was right there under his tennis shoe. Either it was some ants. I don't know if it was turf or what kind of lawn he was playing on. Yeah, I think that's him with his daughter, not sister, daughter. He had two daughters
Yeah,
and a
Kimberly.
wife, of course. Yeah, wife, of course. Yeah, that's right. So he somehow he had a kind of mind changing experience, whatever it was. He gave up actual professional tennis and he moved to try to propagate this Pavitram Idam Uttamam in whatever ways he could. He became a professional coach and he made his money through the coaching and as a motivational speaker, and always recommending a vegetarian diet even as a motivational speaker and a professional coach, arguing how it can produce the protein that's required, that one doesn't have to depend on food stuff that brings so much karmic reaction later and so on, and gradually there were some changes. That is Peter Bowash. Of point being that you can take to this process no matter what situation you're in. You may go away from the track because of the pressures of your lifestyle, which is at odds maybe with spiritual life. But Peter Bowash had a long life and he died only earlier this, as far as I know, earlier this year or this month. I'm not sure. He used to come regularly to ISKCON. He never got initiated. He never really took initiation from anyone. Not sure exactly why, but he was just happy and everyone just said, just stay the way you are. This Peter Burwash. And if you want to go back to scripture, there's this famous story of Mrigari the hunter. Narada Muni, this, Narada Muni was, as usual, walking around like a transcendental spaceman, being so elevated that he can just fly with his Veena right across the
Mhm.
planet. Anyway, he came to a forest where he saw Mrigari the hunter. I'm not sure. Are you familiar with the story of Mrigari the hunter?
No, no, I'm not sure actually. Like,
Okay,
how does
so
it go?
this is okay. This is just the hunter who Narada Muni was watching, and he was hunting, but he was not fully killing the creatures. And they were Narada Muni then intervened and said, "If you're a hunter, okay, that's your dharma. You have to kill and eat or sell. Why are you not killing them?" He said, "That's what I was taught. So I'm only doing what I was taught to half kill them. So this is even more cruel than the average. At least instant death is any day. I mean, a better option." So Narada speaks to him and preaches to him and teaches him the Mahamantra and teaches him just to, and then of course the question comes, this hunter says, all right, I understand I've been very sinful, but if I stop this, where is my food going to come from? You're telling me just to stand or sit in this little hut and keep chanting and doing devotional stuff. So Narada says that I will arrange with local villagers or other folk to basically bring you the food you need. And when Narada returns after some months, or I don't know how long it is, he sees the same man uh, chanting, but basically moving from one foot to another. And when he inquires again as to why he's doing something so strange, he is told that it is because there are creatures under his foot that he doesn't want to kill while he's chanting, when he's standing. So he lifts one. So to talk about the transformation of the heart that has taken place purely through the process of this chanting the holy name, and I don't know if he was in a position to read, I doubt it, even if it is palm leaf manuscript, because he was an illiterate hunter. So that is the kind of transformation of the heart that,
Even
yeah,
even like Jada Bharat also had the same thing, no? Like he wouldn't want to stamp on the ants that as he was carrying the palanquin of the king and all that. Like, so
that's
he
how he
didn't
got
want
killed.
to.
Correct.
Yeah, he got. So even he also like he was also like illiterate, like I guess or something like that. Like he
Yeah.
didn't have. Yeah, so
Correct,
that's
correct.
another.
That's a good thing example you've come up with, and that's how he gets kicked by Rahuguna the king. You know that
Yeah.
because the palanquin kind of jolts, and this Jadabharat, although he is born, I think the son of a Brahmin, the Brahmin tries his best to educate him, and he either just pretends he's a dumb idiot or something, so that he's left alone. And once the Brahmin dies, then his brothers treat him very badly. I understand. I know this. Correct. So that is a kind of transformation that it can bring, and especially if you go on the net and see, or if you go back to the archives, uh, the ISKCON, the Hare Krishna movement is full of cases of people who lived even below the modes. At least because we're born into Indian culture, I doubt we've gone beyond Tamagun. But I have had senior devotee ladies tell me that we were in some category even below the modes. So I know how valuable this is and what Prabhupada did for us by coming and making us to come up the modes. So that is the transformative power it has. Now remember in this second verse we read a difficult word called pratyakshavagama. Pratyaksha meaning
Yeah.
realization, realized, vigyan.
Yeah.
So I mean by
Pratyaksha
direct
Avatam.
experience, by direct experience. And in the first verse we heard about jnana, vijnana. That is, again, Vigyan meaning realized knowledge. So what exactly is realized knowledge? It's practical knowledge, that you actually practically experience it. And this happened to Narada Muni in his previous life when he's narrating to his disciple Vyasadeva. He talks of how, Narada Muni had earlier was the son of a maidservant in the first canto. I think you might, if you go back to the first canto, fifth chapter, you will see in his
Mm.
earlier life, he was, before he becomes Narada Muni, he was just the son of a maidservant who was serving in some ashram where the great sages and the munis would sit and discuss and then eat there.
Yeah, I think yes, I remember that. Like he was, but because he had like, what is it? But he was still like devoted, I think, to
He
Krishna.
uh,
Like
he
I think, right?
was, yeah, he was certainly a child with devotional inclination, which is why when the maidservant mother would go to clean up, and the remnants, which are considered a very powerful tool, though to our rational, logical, civilized, educated mind it seems repulsive that anybody will eat juta, not in the sense necessarily of what they've chewed and put out, what is left on the plate, what they did not eat, those kind of rice grain, some little sabji that is left, that is considered potent if the person who has actually eaten it is himself or herself an advanced devotee. Because prasad through the mouth, it purifies the tongue, it goes inside and purifies the heart, and it cleanses the consciousness. As I said, to average educated logical rational mind it seems the opposite of what we are told to do. We are not supposed to allow anybody else to have to handle the leftovers on our plate, which is contaminated. We just throw it into the dustbin, and least of all, I mean, do we allow anyone else to eat it, or will we feel like eating it ourselves? But that is not the case in the devotional system. And Narada Muni's maidservant, when she used to clean out and the leftover food, uh, Narada Muni asked permission from those sages if he could eat some of that. And they agreed, and he ate it, and he kept getting some advancement and spiritual progress he kept making in the small way that he could. And more than that, he was able to overhear a lot of their talks, and I think that also impacted him. Then that situation is over, and then we hear of how suddenly one day this poor boy Narada Muni, who's son of a maidservant, sorry, in his previous life, and he's not yet Narada, the mother goes to milk the only cow they have, which is the source of their livelihood, or the cow belongs to the ashram and the sages, and one of her chores was to milk the cow. But when she goes in the darkness, she is bitten by a snake and she dies a snake bite. So now Narada Muni is initially distraught that he had nothing in this world. He had no father, he has no wealth, no education, nothing, no high birth. And the only resource or the comfort he had was a mother, and the mother is also snatched away. But because he has already made some advancement overhearing the talks of these sages, and by eating the leftovers from their plates, what is called prasad or mahaprasad, usually it is taken from what is offered to the deity is considered mahaprasad, and quickly we eat even a little bit because it helps us. So realization, we talked about this word vigyan, not just gyan but vigyan and pratyakshavagam, direct experience. Realization hit him that Krishna is basically paving the way or clearing up the clutter so that he could now be totally dependent only on the Lord, because there is nobody else to depend on. Mother is also gone. And in this sense, that's what he's expected to do. He is to depend completely on the Lord, and he clears up the clutter in such a way that you could single-mindedly only focus on spiritual life. And that is how, after some more time, he dies and takes birth as Narada Muni. So this is what is meant by that realization. And even devotees will tell us many things that you read of in certain circumstances. It's like someone is telling you from within. And the same thing that you've read in a book, some sentence, some statement you heard in a lecture, in a class, it really hits home. That this is, gosh, it's absolutely right. I feel exactly like that now. We keep hearing dukhale mashashvatam, dukhale mashashvatam. That is the material world, is a place where dukkham or sorrow can be purchased. It is like aushadhalay and anathalay. Anathalay is an orphanage where you can go and find orphans. If not for purchase, you find them. Aushadhala is a medical store, Ayurvedic, where you can go and purchase Aushadha or medicines. So Dukhalaya is basically a place where in the world where medicine, whether you pay or don't pay, you get dukham or sorrow. Ashashvatam, it's temporary, nothing lasts. You think a situation is going well, it turns on its head. You think a situation is frustrating, suddenly everything clears up and becomes nice. And suddenly you hear all this. Some situation when you are ripe or you've done enough work on yourself and on your heart and in your practice, and suddenly it just hits home what you've been reading in a book and what the actual experience at the other end is. That's called a realization. We have this realization like that. So that's what is meant by Vigyan in the first verse. And Pratyakshavagamam, meaning that by direct experience, you get to understand how this whole process works. Because as I said, the Lord is an active participant. He is there from within the heart in the form of the super soul, cleaning out the heart. If we are cleaning like a window from this side, he is equally participating from the other side. And he arranges certain tests and punishments for us, but he reclaims us and gets us back on our path back out of this miserable cycle of birth and death. And now we've been told about this famous Padma Puran verse, this we just discussed it, so I won't repeat it. Aprarabdha phalam papam. Just remember this, that sinful reaction or the karma is both prarabdha and aprarabdha. Prarabdha means something that's already giving us a headache. It may be a disease, it may be a difficult situation at work, it may be a bad marriage, it may be a difficult relationship in some other form, a lack of money, poverty, some blow we've had to suffer to our plans and aspirations. That's already happened. That's prarabdha. Aprarabdha is that part of our sinful reaction that's yet to bear fruit and yet to manifest. But devotional service, especially Kevala Bhakti or pure Bhakti for the Lord, has the great ability to fry out even those seeds so that they don't germinate and they don't bear fruit. Exactly as you would fry fresh seeds in a frying pan. Okay, now we have to. Ooh. Okay, let's look at. We've just discussed this about Narada Muni, so we can skip that. This whole thing is about Narada Muni. Let's just skip now to the third last big para of this big purport, which starts with why it is considered susukam or why it makes people happy.
Okay.
The process of devotional service is very happy one. That one?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Could you please read that particular para?
Yeah. So the process of devotional service is a very happy one. Susukam. Why? Devotional service consists of Shravanam, Kirtanam, and Vishnoha. Now, so one can simply hear the chanting of the glories of the Lord, or can attend philosophical lectures on transcendental knowledge given by authorized acharyas. Simply by sitting, one can learn, then one can eat the remnants of the food offered to God, nice palatable dishes. In every state, devotional service is joyful. One can execute devotional service even in the most poverty stricken condition. The Lord says, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam. He is ready to accept from the devotee any kind of offering, never mind what. Even a leaf, a flower, a bit of fruit, or little water, which are all available in every part of the world, can be offered by any person, regardless of social positions, and will be accepted if offered with love. There are many instances in history. Simply by tasting the tulsi leaves offered to the lotus feet of the Lord, great sages like Sant Kumara became great devotees. Therefore, the devotional process is very nice and it can be executed in a happy mood. God accepts only the love with which things are offered to Him.
Okay. To just illustrate how it's happily performed, and we should be happy when we are performing it. Maybe you've come across, there was a lady devotee. She passed away some while ago, called Yamuna Devi. She's written cookbooks. She was an American. She
Yeah, I've
came
heard of
to
this name.
she
Yeah, I've
came
heard of
to
this.
India. She was a pujari in some temples. Then she goes back to. She's married to Guru Das. Guru Das is still there. No children. Yamuna Devi, and she passed away little large. Yeah, this Yamuna Devi Dasi, that's her. Later in life, she became very large. And that's her. That's her. She traveled with Prabhupada. She sing beautiful kirtan. This, if you tune into any, this is her in her old age. This, if you tune into any ISKCON 7:15 Darshan Arati, temple program, what they blare over the microphone is a recording of her singing the
Oh.
Brahma Samhita Govinda Madi Purusham, just two lines they say again and again. It was set to music by George Harrison. Very catchy tune. Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. So
Mm.
she, the way she came to Krishna consciousness is just what we would call fluke. She was not necessarily a seeker or anything. She comes of Italian background and she was a good cook, a non-veg cook. All right, of Italian stuff. Now, out of the blue, her name was Joanna Campanella. This is her. Joanna Campanella. Campanella is a typical Italian kind of surname. And she was somewhere in America. And out of the blue, she got a message from her sister saying her sister is getting married to a Hare Krishna devotee whom she's met and fallen in love with. And a Swami who is come from India is going to conduct the marriage. And can the sister, Yamuna, at that time, Joanna, please come for the marriage? And Joanna says she was not doing anything in particular when this letter came. She was looking out at the Atlantic Ocean. So I'm not very good with my geography, but she was in some part of America where she could see a storm breaking on the horizon. And this
Mm.
letter came, and she says that letter changed her entire life. Because she didn't know what she was in for. Some Indian Swami, okay, so many people experiment. Her sisters got involved with the Hare Krishnas, fine. What's the big deal? And the sister, she said, okay, he's marrying an American who is Hare Krishna. Okay, I'll go. And she bought a train or plane ticket or whatever, and she flew there. And she's walked into a situation where there was this elderly, balding, very clean but looking Swami who straight away, without her even saying, I'm interested in cooking, my name is Joanna, I am the sister, as she walked in with her luggage and said, would you like to make kachori? And this poor Yamuna didn't know what kachori was and said, just wash your hands and come. And she was straight away thrown into the wedding festive preparations of the huge meal that Prabhupada cooked. Some 10, 20, 30 people were expected. All these fledgling Hare Krishna types. And she says for the next 6 hours, she didn't know what hit her. And because basically she was a very serious cook, everything appealed to her, the taste, the smells, what he was telling her, how to roll the dough or how to make the kachori, how it shouldn't burst. And in between, she would ask him, Swami, can I go and smoke? And the Swami would say, all right, but wash your mouth and hand before you come back. So he was so lenient, all right, because she was not used to working without relying on the cigarette to give her some energy. So she would go and do that and come. And the next day she said it was like mind-blowing experience. Someone had got a kind of tinsel sari for the sister, and the sister was dressed up in the sari, and the Swami gave her away in marriage. And the feast was enjoyed by everyone, and there was incense and what. And she was completely sucked into the movement like this. Prabhupada never actually asked her, have you ever thought what will happen to you after you die? And are you wasting your life? And what do you do? And how many lovers do you have? Nothing. He didn't talk about that side. He just drew her into a physical kind of practice of this devotional service, which she thoroughly enjoyed, that completely hooked her. And subsequently, she met and got married within the movement to Guru Das. Both of them came with Prabhupada. They always traveled with Prabhupada whenever he was put up with these wealthy Banya, Marwadi, Vaishnava families. And he would get permission for her, though she was a white woman and many Indian families may not approve, to allow her to go into the kitchen and watch their family cook, making Indira Gandhi's house besan laddu, Dalmia household paneer burji, paneer fry, something with mutter, with green peas, and so on. Classic kind of recipes. She compiled all that into a kind of big book called the Krishna's Cuisine, the Art of Indian Vegetarian Cooking. She did so many shows. She was pujari. She had a kind of a life that it almost as if something was happening on Swargaloka, because she got so much opportunity to work closely with the inauguration of the temples. The London ISKCON, the Soho temple, She was in charge, and all kinds of blunders happened because time was short. The one deity, one pillar started swaying because it hadn't been cemented properly in the inauguration. Somebody had to go and hang on to the. She did the dresses, the sewing for the deities. She did their makeup and their alankar and all kinds of things, which the experiences she had. And then later, after Prabhupada passed away, she found ISKCON to be changed, and a new, you can say, a mood came in which didn't allow ladies to do many things that Prabhupada had allowed. And the people who now were in control said Prabhupada had allowed it because it is a fledgling movement, but once it is recognized as an official organization, Prabhupada would have naturally restricted the freedom of the ladies in doing services because he had to function in a culture like India, where Indians wouldn't even come if they saw a female pujari on the altar. Anyway, which side is wrong and which side is right, we don't know. All we know is that she distanced herself a little. She went back and stayed um, in British Columbia in Canada on a huge Sharanagati, a kind of community, farm community. She had a lot of supporters. She'd come to Mayapur. We have met her. She would give class. She sang beautifully. And finally, Gurudas is still alive. She passed away.
This is the sound, no?
Bhaktu Kamaniya Vishesha Shobha Govind.
Adipusha Tamam Gajami. This song is there in the temple at the Bhakti Center, no?
Yeah.
They play this. They play this all. I always this particular version of the song is there. Always played at the end of that. Their videos and all that.
Right.
They when they are when that altar is shown, no, and that
That's
the
right.
deity, that thing is open, the cupboard. They play this every time when this happens. They play it
Yeah,
every
in
time.
every ISKCON temple, Kannan, Indian or Western, 7:15 in the morning or 7:20, it's called deity greeting. Deity has been
Uh,
dressed by the pujaris, and they're going to greet that. This is the song that in
song.
everywhere they just play the recording. This is Yamuna Devi's um, voice. So hers was really like a charmed life. It's from where this blew into her and blew her out, and Krishna said.
These paintings are really like, who made these paintings actually?
That's another remarkable thing. Prabhupada guided. Many of them never knew any painting, never knew what Krishna looked like. Somebody bought a photo of Hanuman back from an Indian trip and told Prabhupada, I feel very attracted to this cat. And Prabhupada said, this is not a cat, this is Hanuman. This is the deity Hanuman. And then he starts talking about the Ramayana. Like that, meaning there are specific, if you want to know, there are specific artists under Prabhupada's guidance who did this. There's a whole book, big fat book, which I was given as a loan by ISKCON called ISKCON's Art. You know, we never considered buying it because that book cost 5,000 rupees with lovely plates and photographs.
This is a nice photo. This is like
Very nice.
almost like some they took some boy's face and they asked him to just like pose for some time, and then
Yeah, very
that person
nice.
do the face like that and all.
To the best of my knowledge, all these were painted by Western women and men. One famous artist is Jadu Rani. She's still alive. She wears her white hair short and lives in Vrindavan. Type and see Jadurani. I think now she spells her name Yadu Rani or something, but it's that same Jadu Rani, artist for ISKCON. She's quite old now.
This
Yeah,
one, right?
that's her. This is her.
Yeah, I've seen this interview of hers actually. This one,
Okay,
this interview I've
Vinamrasya.
seen.
She's responsible for a lot of the paintings. And there are others also. Yeah, these memory series, remembering Srila Prabhupada, are very informative because they pull out different disciples who are still alive today and talk of their experience. Memories. I have that whole set somewhere, the videos, and you can get it all free now online.
Yeah.
There was a famous photographer called Vishakha, who is now, she's alive and well, two daughters and husband, and she is now temple president of the London Temple or the Manor. I'm not sure. Vishakha, KHA. Grey hair, glasses. No, not. This is the
Not this
young
one?
Kirtanier in Mayapur by the same
Oh,
name,
okay.
not this one. This is a young mother now. No, not this. This is an elderly Prabhupada disciple, Vishakha Dasi,
Is
photographer.
it BI? This one, huh?
No, Vishakha. No, you have to find Prabhupada. You have to somehow put Prabhupada disciple. Wish try not Kirtan. She is not a Kirtanier. This young lady Vishakha is the Kirtanier in Mayapur. I think you try and put Prabhupada beside.
This one?
That's Vishakha. This is Vishakha. Glasses.
This one.
Now she is older. This is taken some 10-15 years ago. This is what she looks like now. Her two daughters came to do where I teach in the Mayapur Institute.
Oh, so she did the painting.
No,
So
no.
regarding
She is a
Prabhupada's instructions
photographer.
on how a woman must
Oh,
be
No.
submissive to her husband, what is like how as young women in Krishna consciousness, how should we understand that instruction?
She's now temple
That
president of
for
one of the.
peaceful society or peaceful family life, the psychology of the male, Prabhupada explains,
She
the
had
male wants
studied
to be in a
photography
superior position,
professionally in
goes along
the
with the
New
male
York
ego,
State University or
so the
something.
wife can
And she came
understand the
basically.
psychology there, and through love, she can get exactly what she wants also. It's a matter of give and take, but if one tries to be defiant or rebellious in this way, it can create controversy and tension. But if there's actually a spirit of cooperation between husband and wife, then it's something that's very beautiful. And it's good for both the husband and the wife.
oh, that's nice.
Because and she's considered one of the wise saint voices in ISKCON. She and her husband Yadubar, two daughters. She traveled with Prabhupada and took many photographs of the early temples, parts of Vrindavan where normally women were not allowed. So she was not a painter, but she was a photographer, and Prabhupada engaged her fully.
There's this some video of Prabhupada actually, but like I was trying to see like
Is it the
uh,
death scene, the death
Welcome.
situation? No.
Thank you.
You founded
this
the
one.
Hare Krishna movement some 7 years ago in 1967, did you not?
Yes.
In a capsule, what is the movement?
The movement is to awaken God consciousness of the human being. The human being is distinguished from the animals, that the animals cannot understand what is God.
Hmm.
And if the human being also does not understand what is God, then he is animal.
I see. And so your movement is to bring about an understanding of God
Yes.
among human beings.
Yes.
And Hare Krishna means what?
Hare Krishna means addressing the energy of God. Hare means the energy of God, and Krishna means God.
Hmm. Okay. You were here yesterday and to attend your annual festival that was
Yeah.
held here in Golden Gate Park, and we were there too. And in fact, here it is.
He's always
A
like
few thousand
smiling,
people
like
came
he's
out to
like
hear it. How many
trying to
people are
smile.
now
Doesn't look like
disciples
he's wants to do
of
the
the Krishna
interview.
consciousness movement?
Dedicated life, about 10,000
About 10,000 dedicated
in the
ones.
Western world.
Hmm. Your Grace, is there any significance at all in the shaved head? Why are heads shaved?
We keep ourselves very clean, that's all.
Oh, it's just a cleanliness thing.
Yes.
Is there any significance in the color of the robes?
At least at the present moment, people think that by keeping long hair, it becomes very beautiful.
I see.
Yes. So we are against it.
Mm-hmm. Just as simple as that. Is there any significance in the yellow robes?
Yellow robe is the dress, those who are dedicated.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It could very well have been a blue robe. It's just something that was arrived at.
This saffron.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Your Grace, why do you feel that so many people are pulling away from the traditional religions in this country, such as Christianity and so forth, and going for the trying to understand the Eastern religions? We hear a lot of swamis and gurus and other type of yogi and so forth. Why do you feel that people are pulling away from the traditional Christian standards here?
But we see that the Christian churches, especially I've seen in London, mostly closed. People are not interested, or the Christian leaders, they cannot make them interested.
Why? Did Christianity fail the people, which is why they're turning to other things? Or?
I think so.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You say that Hare Krishna consciousness pretty much takes the absolute truths from the Bible, the Quran, the Torah, and the Vedic.
Yeah, everywhere.
Everywhere.
Religion means to understand God.
I understand, but do you feel that in getting truths from various places like the Bible and the Quran and so forth, don't you run into conflicts at all or contradictions in those particular philosophies?
No, I don't find any conflict because the ultimate goal is God. So you have to understand God and try to love Him. So you can go through any religious process. If the goal is attained, that you understand what is God, and you try to love Him, then your life is perfect.
Why do we see so many of your followers almost all the time?
Chanting means to keep association with God always.
So you have to audibly chant Hare Krishna?
Yes. This is transcendental vibration. Just like a radio message. If you keep contact with the radio message, then you know everything what is going on outside. Similarly, this transcendental sound, Hare Krishna, if you chant, then you keep connection with God directly.
Thank you very much, Your Divine Grace. It's been our privilege to talk with you and to meet you.
Thank you.
And hope that we can see you again when you return.
Hare Krishna.
That's nice.
Yeah, some of these would get a little conflict or prone. And once a young lady journalist asked him, she was wearing a very short skirt, and I think she asked him the same thing, that why do you I'll track that down. It ends up being quite funny, like a retort from Prabhupada, which kind of really hits home, and she's also amused. Yeah, many of these are very nice, and there's so much available on the internet.
Yeah, there's a lot of videos. Like there's like ones where he's there was one where he's like there's all these I think there's a Christian group that he was talking to, and they kind of asked him some questions and all that stuff. So that was like quite funny actually. Like I'm not sure what it is. There's all kinds of videos like that.
Yeah. Lot of his own disciples who were technologically savvy enough came from the West, and they were already familiar. They bought portable recorders, and yeah, that's why we have, and there's a huge project going on, some community in America, which is called the Archives, where this is, of course, that end scene, no? It's a very difficult moving one. I know that.
Oh, this one. This is one I think.
Nécessaire, comment dit-on, la nourriture.
I think it explains
For the
about
food of
meat eating.
man. To eat. To eat.
Man can eat grains, food grains, fruits, milk, sugar, wheat.
Pas de chair, pas de
No flesh.
no flesh.
No. Why? Just like the fruits. The fruits are meant for human being.
Yes.
The tiger does not come to eat your fruits.
Yes.
So tiger's food is another animal. Man's food is fruit,
Yes, sir.
food grains.
Yes, yes, yes.
Milk
That's
products, just like
fascinating.
you.
It's like,
It is why
what kind of logic
because
is
grain on plants are also living beings. Living beings.
That we also understand.
Yes, sir.
But if you can live just like generally, if I can live on fruits and grains and milk, why should I kill another animal?
Yes, sir. Yes. Very.
Another thing is that how can you support that animal killing is not sin?
Yes, sir.
Comment justifier que tuer les animaux n'est pas péché?
Que les animaux n'est pas péché.
Que tuer
les animaux n'est pas péché.
How do you justify it?
Yes, because we thought that there is a difference of nature between life of man, life of spirit, and biological life. We think that animals, plants are not real beings.
They say there is no soul inside the animal.
yeah.
Okay. Mhm. Correct. Yeah.
Word of
But
appearance.
Prabhupada's expression, he doesn't seem convinced at all. Like he's still looking at him and he's
Right.
what he's trying to say. Like he's got that expression on his face, you know. It's very
And it's
interesting.
very interesting. Supreme confidence, but also, I don't know if you see his whole life of preparation and so many difficulties before he got going. It's just these 10 years that he was able to do all this. Nothing was happening for him until he was about 68, until he passed away in 1977. And it was only around 68, 69 the things started moving. When he passed away, he was 81. That's right. He was 81. So when he went abroad, he was already past 70.
Hmm. Oh, this was the.
That family that went to Rishikesh? No. Oh no,
Oh,
till
this is
the
the
last.
last. This is the last minute, basically, right?
That's moving, disturbing.
If
I know.
in devotional
Yeah.
service, we get a different nature,
It's the Bhagavatam because he couldn't
and if we
complete it. He
engage
can do someday.
in the business of sense gratification, the result is different.
And then the karma is tad de hopalabdi hetu.
Yeah. And according to the association of different nature, we get a body. Karanam gunasangasya satasat janma yoni. Therefore, we should always seek good association, devotee association.
And these guys around him are all very
Then
young.
on life
Just
will be
imagine
success.
this.
Wow, that's very powerful. Like
Yeah, between
great to find.
1968 and 1970.
22,000 pages of this. 6 pages of
Right.
text every single day.
And so we have the Bhagavatam which you just finished reading. So we'll stop here today.
Sure.
Okay, Kannan, because we've got through verses 1 and 2, and there's quite a lot. We've almost got through the full purport of verse 2. If there's something left, we
Yeah.
can do that next time. Yeah, we were talking about Susukham, how it's a happy one, and that's really like the last point. Yeah, so next, you will still be in Kochi next Saturday. Anyway, whatever. Whichever
Yeah.
one is
So
convenient.
I'll just stop the recording.
Yeah.
One second. Yeah.